All right, today we're going to be talking about humor and its corresponding emotion, mirth. So we're going to start by distinguishing between humor and its emotion, and also the physiological manifestations thereof, smiling and laughter. It has been shown that about 10% of all conversations use humor. And this is a fact that has been proven over and over. Of course, the use of humor in the workplace is also very well documented. So we're going to use some examples from the workplace environment. The biggest question that we're going to address is how speakers signal their intention to be funny, to be humorous. And then we're going to talk about what I have called the virtuous circle of humor, which basically means that the more there is smiling and laughing, so the external manifestations of humor can turn into felt humor, and so in turn generate more humor. So first of all, we need to start by having some definitions. So first of all, humor is a cognitive phenomenon. It's something that happens in the head, in the brain of people. There is a very complex set of theories about how humor works, but simplifying things quite a bit, there is a mismatch between some people's expectations and what actually occurs in a given situation. And this mismatch is called incongruity. Humans don't like incongruity. And whenever we encounter something that is a mismatch between what we expected and what we get, we look for ways to resolve this incongruity. And this has been called the resolution phase of the humor. Now here it's important to stress that this is not a real resolution, it's not a factual resolution, it's just a playful one. So the example that you have on the slide, how many graduate students does it take to change a light bulb? Well, the answer is 5, but the professor gets all the credit. So first of all, it's incongruous that it would take 5 people to change a light bulb. It's a very simple thing to do. But then the resolution is that, in fact, we're not talking about changing light bulbs at all, but we're talking about the fact that students do all the work and the professors take all the credit. And so that resolves the incongruity. That's why you need 5 students, because they have to do a lot of work. Then mirth is the emotion that is elicited by humor. This is also called amusement, hilarity, exhilaration. There's many terms. There's been a lot of discussion, and you can see on the slide some people have proposed exhilaration, others have preferred mirth, and we're going with the mirth terminology here. Now the interesting thing, and that's the graph, the image on the right side of the slide, is that mirth has specific neural correlates. That is, there are parts of the brain that specifically recognize that emotion. So it is not only a construct of psychologists, but it is also visible in the brain. Then we now move on to smiling and laughter. These are physical behaviors. They may, but don't have to be caused by mirth, by the emotion of humor. And then there's 2 different kinds. They're felt or social, in other words, not felt displays of emotion. And this goes for both smiling and laughter. And again, they are produced by different areas of the brain. So there are different neuronal correlates for felt and social smiling and laughter. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see the muscles that are involved in producing felt smiles. So we now get to the body of the unit. How do speakers signal their humorous intention? Well, first of all, we need to start by noting that in some cases, humor appears without any signal whatsoever of its presence. In English, this is called deadpan delivery. In many languages, there are similar expressions. So first of all, then, if you notice that there is humor in a conversation, then obviously that signals that the speaker that produced the humor thinks that humor is appropriate for that situation. And once you've detected then one instance of humor, then you are encouraged to produce more instances of humor, because since the first person said it's appropriate to use humor in this situation, now you're encouraged to do so because the other person already did it. Now, in the field, there is what we've called the folk theory of humor markers, which claims that humor would be marked by all sorts of prosodic markers, such as higher pitch, higher volume, long pauses preceding the humor, faster or slower speech rate, and laughter. These predictions are not confirmed by empirical evidence. We've done studies that show that none of those is the case. So how do then speakers know that the other person that they're talking to is joking? Well, first of all, some of research that some of our students and us have been doing shows that there are some correlates in the intensity of smiling. In other words, the speaker goes from a very mild smile to a broader smile. And so that shows that the speaker or the hearer is interpreting the situation as humorous. There is an increase in synchronicity, which is basically the fact that the speakers tend to match each other's intensity of smiling at the time. And they tend to smile at the same time, not necessarily at the same level of intensity. And then the other thing that we found using eye tracking is that the speakers tend to look more frequently to the eyes and to the mouth, which are the parts of the face that are used for smiling. Now, to be fair, this is very preliminary research and has only been done with American speakers, so we're not sure that this applies across the board. The biggest point that I would like to stress is that the intent of being humorous is negotiated by the speakers in the situation. So, as I already said, the folk theory of humor assumed that the speakers signal to the hearer that they want to be funny, as one would like wave a flag and say, "Watch out, I am trying to be funny." That is not the case. What we call the negotiated intention approach is that the speaker and the hearer, both of them, through cues, signal to each other and negotiate whether the situation should be interpreted as humorous. So the speakers, both of them, will pay attention to the smiling to see whether the intensity and the synchronicity increase. They will pay attention to whether the smiles are felt, or so-called Duchenne smile. And if they detect some humor in prior terms, and all of these cues together point in the same direction, then they will basically key the situation, they will legitimize the situation for humor, and therefore social behavior that is just smiling to communicate without feeling the emotion of mirth may turn into felt emotion, and the speaker may experience mirth. And this is what brings us to what we've called the virtuous circle. So both of the speakers at the same time are negotiating whether the interaction should be considered humorous or not. They do so by paying attention to the clues of humorous intention, which we've said are smiling intensity, synchronicities, laughter, and so on. And so they are then attuned to the possible presence of humor. If humor is detected and there is a positive reaction, this keys the situation for even more humor. And if the humor is appreciated, then the speakers experience mirth and therefore are in a better mood and therefore more likely to produce humor, and the cycle begins anew. So how does this apply to workplace situation? Well, it has been shown that there is a considerable amount of research on the subject, that humor can be used both to assert power, and so that would be the situation in which the boss tells the employee what to do, or to subvert power, and that would be the situation in which the employees reject the instructions of the boss and do what they want. Per se, humor is neutral. It's neither conservative or subversive. It can be used in any way. Because, as I said, each interaction is negotiated in a specific context among the participants. So we're now going to look at an example coming from Plester's work, and you have the reference on the slide. So in this situation, one speaker, who is a salesman, did not get tickets to a movie premiere that one of the colleagues had organized. So in the situation, Alf, the salesperson, walks up to a group of colleagues and tells Kara, who was the person who organized the event, with a big smile, grinning, "You're a bitch," which is, of course, a very strong insult. The reaction is that everybody laughs. So obviously, in this case, the marking of the situation as humorous is done by the broad smile, and of course by the incongruity of the insult, open insult to a colleague, which is socially obviously the very dispreferred option. And then the audience ratifies his attempt at humor by laughing and therefore keying the situation as humorous. And this allows Alf to express his displeasure at not having been given the tickets without losing face, and with the possibility, should Kara have taken offense, to claim, "I was just joking, I was only kidding," as the expression goes, which would allow him to backtrack if his attempt at humor had failed. So, summing up, humor is a cognitive process which may result in the experience of mirth, which is an emotion, and this emotion may be signaled by felt smiling and laughter, or by social smiling and laughter. And the presence of these keys, including also the presence of humor itself, may key the situation for further humor. The process is negotiated in real time, in other words, while the interaction is happening, not before and not after, by both of the participants in the interaction. It's not just the speaker. And then an important caveat is that this framing, this keying for humor, is only active for so long. It doesn't last forever, and it needs to be renewed on a regular basis, or the situation will default back to serious conversation. It is only among very close friends that you don't need to renew the keying. So again, I want to stress that the negotiation is a two-way street, using a metaphor. It is not just done by the speaker. It's both the speaker and the hearer who have to ratify the exchange as being humorous. Both the hearer and the speaker may reject the humorous framing, And for example, if somebody says, that's not funny, what the speaker is saying is not that the situation isn't funny, because otherwise you wouldn't even think of saying that's not funny. But saying that's not funny means that I deny that in this context you can treat this situation as being appropriate for humor. You know, and as I said before, if a speaker's attempt at humor is denied, then you can say, I was kidding, which means that, well, don't take what I just said seriously, because my intention was not to be serious, and you know, therefore the speaker is allowed to backtrack. Now, of course, this can be done insincerely, in the sense that if I say something meaning it to be funny and people don't take it seriously or take it negatively, you can then say, oh, I was actually joking when you were not joking at all. That is, something was really serious. Okay, and this ends our presentation.